So, hello again. This is Difficult Second Album Syndrome, I think. Thank you to all the people who liked my Deep Mind 6 video. I was trying to decide what to do a video on and thought I'd do something a bit newish, but that I've had some experience with, so I found the Elektron Digitone. This is a unit I got a couple of months ago on the recommendation of DJ Falling Girl on Twitter, so thank you for that. And I'm really liking it. It's a very powerful device. I've been using it for Helicopter Quartet. I used it in a CSMA gig a while back, and I've been using it on solo albums, and I'll probably be using it for solo gigs as well, because it's a really powerful device that I can control remotely, as I'll show you later. So it'll be quite good for working with violin, for providing backing, and for drum beats and things as well, because it will do those. So it's a nice little portable device, very small, quite heavy because it's built of metal, as Elektron gear tends to be, but that does mean it's very well built. For carrying it around, I do recommend the lid, because that stops all the knobs getting knocked and the buttons being pressed while it's been travelling. It's quite expensive, but it will save your gear, I think. So I think that's a worthwhile investment. Shut up, go away. Right. So basically in the box you get, so these are the sequencer things, these are all sort of control buttons. These 8 knobs here control all sorts of things. They've all got push buttons on them, as well as, and you've got level knobs on here. It's very beautiful, very bright display. I do like this display. It shows up in the dark, it's crisp and clear. You can see what's going on. Sometimes things are a little too small. I think they fixed some of the smaller things in a recent firmware update, so I get that. But it is very clear and you can see what's going on. And these things light up in different things depending on what it's doing. So you can see what's happening. These things here control the track on the sequencer. I'll show you a bit of those later. So, at its heart, basically the Digitone, it's a 8-voice FM synthesizer with a built-in 4-track sequencer. That sounds quite basic. It's actually a lot more to it than that. I'm a big fan of FM synthesis. I like the sound you can get out of it. It's not the answer to all synthesis problems, but it is very powerful and I do like those sorts of sounds. And it sounds very nice. The FM on the Digitone, it's 4-operator FM, so it's no less than you would get on a DX7 or anything, but similar to you would get on the Reface DX, for instance. It's a slightly odd structure in that it's not only got a very small number of algorithms, it's only got 8 algorithms you can choose there, and they're controlled by just these 3 knobs, basically. The modulators and carriers are controlled by the 3 knobs. It feels quite limiting when you first get to use it, but it actually makes it really easy to get a good sound out of it. So you're not fiddling around with a lot of things that are never going to work, for instance. It's quite powerful in that sense. A lot of people are put off by FM because how complicated it is, and it is complicated, and you can make some very disgustingly horrible noises very easily. And I think this takes quite a bit of the pain of it out of that for you, so I think kudos to Elektron for doing that. The sequencer is very, very powerful. I'm not going to show you huge amounts on the sequencer. You can watch 4 hours worth of videos on YouTube showing you how the sequencer works. And while I do use it as a sequencer, I just want to show you what I'm mainly interested in is playing it. I'm a player. I've got a keyboard here. This does help. On the synthesizer part of it, the 4 knobs here all match up to various things on the display. Usually you can see them in this corner here. So that one controls the algorithm, that controls C, A and B. Don't ask me why it's C, A and B, it just is. And these control other things. So you can see there the 8 algorithms. See the different things it does. So the way the oscillators are labelled for the FM, though, you've got A, 2 Bs and a C, which is a bit weird. So A and B are controlled by these. Now B is controlled by one knob on its own. And I think that's mainly just to save them a knob to be honest. I can't see another reason for it. It's just it's inconvenient. And C is on that one. So you do. So you can radically change the song down there. These are nice. You can change the harmonics. Feedback levels. So that's very powerful. You've got two outputs here, X and Y, as you can see. It's more obvious if I put it onto here. So you can see this side goes into the X and this side goes to the Y, and then you can mix them using this knob here. So you see it's a very powerful synthesizer engine here. You can do all sorts of very, very clever things with it. You've got the envelopes here for the different oscillators. So you can see there the start later. So you get all this lovely control there you would expect. And there's a filter. It really annoys me when people build FM synthesizer without filters. Oh, it's FM, you don't need a filter. Yeah, you do. Put a filter in. It's just really helpful. Even if we don't use it, please give us a filter. So this has a filter in there, and it works nicely. So it's multimode filter, so you can set it there as high pass, low pass. And again, it has its envelope. You've also got a bass width filter, so you can sculpt it just right on the sides there, as well as the main multimode filter. So you can have the multimode filter off or oscillating, as I can show you later with LFOs. It's really nice. So yeah, I'm very much in favour of filters on there. It's nice. Usual amplifier stuff. There's your amplitude. There's your again, it's all controlled from these knobs at the top here. There's a drive thing here, which is actually always very sceptical about digital distortions. This one's actually quite nice for this instrument. I think it works quite well. They don't always work, and I think they've matched this to the FM engine maybe quite nicely. So maybe that's what's happened here. So that's quite nice. That's the overdrive, looking really good. There's the chorus. The chorus is per track, I believe. Yeah, the chorus is per track. It's got a filter and panning width, which is nice. And then these are the how much it goes from the centre delay. So that's fun. So once you've got a sound, you can then save it as a sound and then you can recall it later, of course. Load these sounds and play them. So the sounds are nice, and you can change them quite easily. One of the nice things about this is actually the drum sounds on it are actually really rather good. So if you do some put a filter on here, say kick drums. So it's quite nice, you can do some quite good drum kicks on that. Quite metallic ones there, very typical FM. Yeah, I think that's using the noise you can get out of FM usually. So you get a lot of good sounds out of it. You can use it as a what I sometimes did was using it as two tracks as a drum machine and 2 tracks as a synth, which is quite helpful. And then obviously we're playing over the top of it as well. So you've got 4 of those engines, and they all go into the sequencer. So you can have all of them running separate sequences. So, and you can mute them and unmute them as you like. So if I start the derp. And you can mute tracks individually. Muting's a bit fiddly. One of the problems I had with muting it is if you're trying to play another keyboard, I've got quite big hands, which is quite good for piano playing, but even then it's a struggle to do that. So what I've done particularly when playing violin, it's especially needed. So what I've done, all the mutes are on CCs. So crunch crunch on the microphone. What I've done, I've programmed this thing here, okay, my soft step. So all the bottom tracks there are on mute, so I can mute the tracks as I like. So you see there, track 1, track 2, track 3, and that will start and stop it. So that gives me foot control over the device, which I use a lot, particularly when I'm playing violin because you don't have hands-free. Not all of the things are available on the CCs. Most of them are, fortunately, but things like record are not, which would be nice. I say to anybody making devices, put as many MIDI CCs or even NRPNs into these devices. I like to control things from foot pedals. Not all of us are focused on the device as the main interface. I know there are people that use this and the Digitact as their main interface and everything connects to it, but we're not all doing that. The UI is obscure at times. Sometimes it's not always obvious what's on each button. So a lot of them are labelled here. Sometimes it's not always where there are 2 things on the button. So it's easy to forget where some things are. So I often lose the effects send amount for each track. It turns out they're on the second amp page here. Now there's no indication on any of the buttons here that there is a second amp page. Maybe it was adding a firmware update before I got mine. I don't know. So that's the one I keep forgetting, and it's there. And I think just the very act of making this video will hopefully make me remember where it is in the future. So there are a lot of shift functions here that are complicated and only do it when you in certain modes. So if you're playing a sequence here and do function clear, it clears the whole sequence, which is very annoying. But luckily you can do things. But if I'm in record mode for that sequence, it just clears that track. So you need to remember things like that, and in the heat of a gig you really need to be remembering what that was. Something I did need to do at the CSM making was just clear one track. And I decided, because I'd only had this a few weeks before the gig, I decided not to do that just because I was going to forget, and the chances of me clearing the whole pattern in the middle of a gig were quite high. So yeah, you need to be on top of some of the things on here. It's a complicated thing. I mean, the arpeggiator, nice arpeggiator, but it is quite complicated. I don't know where that name came from actually. I think it's just a random thing someone to put in there. But it will play all the notes in the sequence there, and then you can change the length of the sequence. So it's quite powerful. And that works with the sequencer as well. So you can have a note on the sequencer that triggers an arpeggio. Triggers the arpeggiator. And that can be on per sequence step. So let's go and do a bit about the sequencer. The sequencer is very, very powerful. I think this is why a lot of people love Elektron gear, and I'm not going to do Elektron sequencer. It's like a quick overview, but it is massively powerful. Every step on the sequencer is not just a note. It's what they call a trig. Yeah. The terminology gets a bit weird. It's a trigger. So a trigger. And you can have anything can change in that. So you could set, let me clear the sequence here so we've got a bit of clarity. So just my basic sort of whoppy kick drum there. But you can change even things like the FM algorithm can be changed. Any of the parameters on the algorithm can be changed. So you've massively changed the sound, and anything can be changed. So if you want the filter, you can build up really complicated things there. Now, there's a facility to load new sounds even as part of a trig, as what step on the sequencer. Because it's FM, you probably, I don't know, I tend not to do that. It's easy just to recreate the sound from what you want, but you can do that. So you can totally change the sound. So that's a boomy sound, you can change it into anything you like. It's really powerful. Then that includes adding reverb sends as well. So if you wanted more reverb on the last one, and again I can't find where it is because I keep forgetting, as I told you earlier. You do that, and that goes across all 4 tracks, so you can do really complicated things. Your tracks can have different lengths as well. Now normally they're set to here, so they're all set to 16 for the moment. But if I do that, you can say, well, this track has 16 length, but the pattern could have different ones. So I could say this track and it's 15, and the whole sequence has 20, for instance. So you can build some really complicated things. The other thing I love on this, and where it's fun and improvising, and this is when you're actually sat at the thing. So the voice thing is quite powerful. So you can say how many voices it uses. It'll do unison voicing, so you can have big, thick sounds and pan them around. You can see here. But you can also move things around the layers, which is this thing here. So I'm doing on track 2 at the moment. If I do that, then what I have on track 2 also comes out on track 1. And there it comes out on track 3. And there it comes out on both. So you get really complicated things coming out of all the tracks, but you don't lose the coherence of your sequence, which you could easily do if it was a different way of doing things. So I find that great fun for improvising with. What you have to be careful with the unison here is you might run out of voices. It is only an 8-voice synth. So it's easy to, you can run out of voices on 8-voice synth when you've got 4 tracks, particularly, because don't forget that includes your release tails as well and the note. So I'm not going to say much more about the sequencer. Go on, watch Cuckoo's video. He's got an hour and a half of this stuff. It's brilliant. I'm just telling you what it is and what it's good for. It'll do not micro timing. Micro timing is really fun. So if I bring up that, let me mute that. So you can see you can make that a bit later. Sounds a bit weird, but you can make it more human time sounding if that's what you really want. If you want to do triplets, that tends to be where you would normally do triplets. If you wanted just a triplet beat in the middle of a sequence, so you can see here it tells you where things are. Although to be honest, doing triplets inside a beat is probably easier using the arpeggiator. Thinking about it, hadn't occurred to me until just now. So as I just showed you earlier, you can control the thing from a keyboard, which is something I do like to do, because it's a nice sounding synth. Why wouldn't you? So it will respond to mod wheel and aftertouch. You can tell it what the aftertouch will respond to. One of the nice things is, even though the tracks are all muted, I've got the tracks muted on here. They still play on the keyboard. That's massively useful, I think, to me. I do use that a great deal. So you can have a sequence that plays and you can play over the sequence from a different track, and then you could have this track playing a sequence itself. It's really nice. So I think that's very handy. You can set in the menu, so then you can say, right, what the pitch bend does, whether it does as a pitch bend, whether it does something else, and other things. So you've got 4 things. What the velocity responds to here. These are really good. So you can set the velocity to trigger all sorts of things on the synth, all the FM synthesis parameters, LFOs. Those are all on, yeah. So it's the proper mod matrix, mod wheel again, which is slider on this thing. Breath control if you've got one of those, and aftertouch, one of my favourite things, aftertouch. So you can say aftertouch. The other good thing about playing from the keyboard here, and I thank Cuckoo for this in his video, which I didn't know about, is the velocity mod also has so all these things here. The velocity can drive all sorts of things as usual, and then velocity is also a trig parameter, so you can use that as an extra modifier on top of your LFOs for modifying sounds. Very powerful, very good. So the other thing the Digitone has is effectively a Midi sequencer. So you've got, as well as the 4 synthesizer channels, you have got 4 MIDI channels. And those can hold anything that you input. I use this for the drum pads, as I said earlier. You can use it for this. I don't have this attached to a synthesizer at the moment, so I can't actually show you. But if you had it attached to another synth or a drum pad, you can do that. It's very powerful. You can either set your MIDI sequence on the thing itself using the keyboard thing, or you can actually record into it. So the way you record into it is you set the channel on here. So you want to record on channel 1, say. That will record a sequence on channel 1, and that will play out onto your sequencer. So you can actually use it as a sequencer that was built into this. And you can, as you can see here, you can automate aftertouch, pitch bend, mod wheel, breath controller, and even program changes as part of the sequence. And there's also those CC values you can change. Those can be anything you like. And these can all be modulated. So it's a really powerful MIDI sequencer. It's not something I've had to play with. I've basically used it with the drum pads just to sequence a rhythm I was playing. But once if you get into it and use this as your main controller, you can do a huge amount with it. There's also an LFO on the MIDI sequencer. Yep, on the MIDI sequencer, which will modulate MIDI CCs, aftertouch, breath controller, pitch bend, all this good stuff. So you can have a lot of good fun with this using it as a MIDI sequencer as well. There are 4 tracks there. You can either send it to a multi-timbral synth or to 4 different synths, whatever you like. It's great. So that's a brief overview of the Digitone. I do like it a lot. I'm getting a lot of use out of it, and I'm very pleased I got it. It's lovely and portable. Despite being slightly heavy, it's small, so it goes in a rucksack or a bag, and you can pack it in. If I've got the violin with me and other bags, it'll just slide into another bag where power supplies and things are. So it's really nice and portable. I think that accounts for a lot for me because I'm trying to carry less gear around with me. Works well with the keyboard. So you can use it as a normal synth, which is always a good thing. So I haven't got the setup worked out yet, but my intention is when I start doing solo gigs again, hopefully next year, to use this with this keyboard and the violin and the sequencer and the soft step there as the controller, so I can control the parameters on the synth and mute and unmute channels. I think that's going to be quite a powerful system. Looking forward to doing that. So I hope this has been interesting. If you want more details on the Digitone, there are loads of things around there. I just wanted to give you my opinion of it, how I use it, what I like, what I don't like. Thank you for watching.